righty, we are started. And I will hit now. And we are rolling. Welcome, everybody. If you are curious about the John Burton Fellowship, you are in the right place. We have a fantastic webinar today planned for you. We're going to introduce a whole bunch of folks in a second, but I'll introduce myself first. My name is Zach Taylor. I work at John Burton Advocates for Youth, directing our research and strategic initiatives, and I'm very excited about this program today because it is truly a revolutionary one that not a lot of places have across the country. It's a very special thing that California is doing for its foster youth. So I am going to go around the horn. We'll do introductions, and then we will dive right into it. However, before we get started, if at any time you have a question, no question too small, please use the Q&A feature, and we will have somebody from the Center for California Studies and the Capital Fellows Program answer that question in real time. At the end of the webinar as well, if you don't feel like your question was fully answered, they will go over the questions at the very end of the webinar. So we'll put a cap on it and make sure you leave with all the information you need to successfully apply and be a very strong candidate for this program. Also, we'll follow up with everybody who registered for this webinar tomorrow with all the slide deck and all the application information. It'll be an email that's probably too much information, but we'll make sure that you have all the information you need to successfully apply and be a very competitive applicant for this very prestigious program. So let's kick it off with the introductions. Leonore, do you want to start with us?
Yes, my name is Leonore Ailing. I am the Executive Director of the Center for California Studies. We're really excited to meet all of you. We hope that you apply to the Capital Fellows programs.
All right, thank you, Leonore, and seconded. Yes, we all hope you apply. Laura, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name's Laura Baker. As you're going to hear in just a moment, the Capital Fellows have 4 subcategories of programs, and each one has a dedicated program director, and I'm the director for the Executive Fellowship Program. Nice to meet you all.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Laura, for being here. Shannon, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to be here. My name is Shannon Swanson, and I'm the Senior Outreach Specialist at the Center for California Studies, where I work with Leonore and Laura and our other team members, and I do the communications and recruitment for all 4 of our Capital Fellows programs.
Excellent. All right, thank you, Shannon. Cynthia, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia. I am actually a former Capital Fellow. I just finished up the Senate Fellowship, so excited to chat with you all about my experience.
Excellent. Thank you, Cynthia. Kashay, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kashay. I am a former foster youth, proudly, I love to say that. And I'm also an alumni of the Capital Fellows Program and actually the Judicial Fellowship in 2023 to 2024.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kashay. And plenty of people in the Kashay fan club. Lots of hearts, lots of
Yes.
congratulations there. I love that. And Sarah, how about you?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sarah Potter. I'm the Executive Director of John Burton Advocates for Youth. And like Cache, I'm another very proud former foster youth.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Well, we will get it kicked off here, and we'll start by a little bit of an agenda. We're going to give you an introduction to who JBAY is, right? Y'all might not know exactly what JBAY is or what we do, and we'll give you a little bit of background on the John Burton Fellowship as well. Then we'll kick it over to our colleagues at Sacramento State to talk a little bit more about the Capital Fellows Program and the Center for California Studies. Then ideally, we'll have time for a bit of a Q&A session. If y'all have noticed, we actually have some program participants, right? So excellent sources of knowledge, and hopefully we can pick their brains a little bit about their experiences and what the program was like moving forward for them. Then JBAY will follow up with a little bit of application support. We're very excited to be able to support applicants to this program on a somewhat limited basis, but it's going to be very important for a few of our applicants. And then we'll follow up with next steps about how you can be successful in applying for this program and making sure you have the strongest candidacy possible. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to my colleague, Sarah at JBAY, who's going to talk a little bit more about what JBAY does. So Sarah, take it away.
Thanks, Zach. I always forget what a wonderful MC you are. Thanks for keeping us moving and getting the slides going for us this afternoon. Really appreciate it. Like I mentioned, I'm Sarah Potter. I'm the Executive Director of John Burton Advocates for Youth. I stepped into this role earlier this year after spending 5 years on our education team, and it's been such an incredible privilege to lead an organization that's been driving systems change for California's most vulnerable youth for over 2 decades. So for those who are unfamiliar with our organization, JBAY was founded by the former president of the California State Senate, Senator John Burton, who believed very deeply that every young person deserves the chance to thrive, not just survive after leaving the foster care system. Our mission is simple, yet very ambitious. It is to improve the quality of life for youth who have experienced foster care or homelessness through policy reform, research, direct assistance, and partnerships that expand educational and economic opportunities. Our work really centers at the intersection of research, policy, and practice. So we identify what works on the ground, and we bring those lessons to scale through legislation and statewide training and technical assistance. Over the years, JBAY has been very successful with our policy advocacy, and we've shaped many of California's most significant policy victories for youth in foster care, including extending foster care from age 18 to 21, ensuring that there's priority access to college housing, financial aid reforms, and much, much more. So if you want to learn more about our organization, you can find all of our resources and more about our background on our website at jbay.org. Next slide, please. But today, I'm really excited. I'm practically jumping out of my chair. I'm so excited today to talk about the John Burton Fellowship, and completely thrilled and have so much gratitude for our partners at CSU Sacramento and the Center for California Studies who are joining us today to share more about the details of the program. So this idea sort of came to be earlier this year when I stepped into the executive director role, because I've realized as a young person who is formerly involved in the foster care system, who emancipated at the age of 18 and then really utilized my lived experience to create systems change, I realized that there's just not a lot of clear paths forward for people who have lived experience to participate in policymaking. And so we've made tremendous gains in systems reform. But from my perspective, one area that remains underdeveloped is really ensuring that there's representation of lived experience in government decision-making. We believe as an organization that systems work best when those that are most affected have a seat at the table, yet we know that very few people in California government actually have personally experienced foster care. So the John Burton Fellowship changes this by creating a pathway for current and former foster youth to serve in the legislature and the executive branch and really help shape the policies that impacted their lives. Today, our goal is not just to launch a program, but it really is to build a pipeline, one that connects lived experience to leadership and strengthens California's child welfare, housing, and higher education systems for generations to come. Next slide, please. So this fellowship really honors John Burton's legacy. So for those of you who are maybe newer to us, John Burton passed away back in September at the age of 91. And so this fellowship was in the works before he passed away, and he was really excited to see this come to fruition because he also recognized that it honors and solidifies his legacy of relentless advocacy, but it opens more doors and new doors for youth whose voices are too often left out of policymaking, which is something that he cared deeply about. As an organization, we recognize that current and former foster youth don't always have opportunities to participate in things like fellowships, and that they may face additional barriers. So one thing that is unique is that JBAY will be providing Burton Fellows with additional supplementary support, including $10,000 for housing, transportation, and other living expenses. This will be in addition to the annual salary and the other benefits that fellows receive, and Shannon will be talking about those soon. John Burton Fellows also get access to what we call the Burton Critical Needs and Opportunities Fund. This is a program that's administered by JBAY, and it helps young people who've experienced foster care or homelessness fill gaps with emergency needs. So if you were like me and you're in college and your radiator explodes and you don't have anyone to call, we have a fund for that. So all of the fellows who are selected as Burton Fellows will have access to those ongoing emergency supports and resources. We'll talk a little bit more about the selection process, and Shannon's going to go over that in detail. But we want to make sure that you're aware that while The Capital Fellows Program, of course, is run and administered by the Center for California Studies at Sacramento State. That JBAY is here for you. We're really kind of recruiting right now for our inaugural cohort of Burton Fellows. And we know that there might be other needs or supports or resources that you need along this journey. And so we want to make sure that you're aware of our organization and all that we can provide to you. We're not just cheerleaders, though we are here to cheer you on. So if there's anything that comes up throughout your time as a fellow or even during the application process, please reach out to us. We want to be a resource for you. And like I mentioned, we are so proud to launch this initiative in partnership with the Center for California Studies at Sacramento State. They are the home of the Capital Fellows Program, which is one of the nation's most prestigious public service fellowships. So throughout this through this collaboration, the John Burton Fellows will serve full-time in government offices. They'll receive graduate level academic credit, and they'll be part of a professional development community designed specifically to support their success. So I cannot thank them enough. I don't want to take up any more airtime. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Shannon.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and Zach and your whole team at JBAY for first of all, just the amazing work that you do to uplift foster youth and former foster youth in California. I'm very excited to talk more in great detail about the Capital Fellows program. So with that, I'm going to share my screen in just a second. And all of our panelists, you'll have to let me know if everything looks good in just a moment. All right, can we see that? Okay.
Looks good, Shannon.
Okay, great. Okay, well, like I mentioned earlier, my name is Shannon Swanson. I'm the Senior Outreach Specialist for the Capital Fellows programs, which, like Sarah mentioned, we operate and administer here at the Center for California Studies, which is a center housed at Sacramento State. I know we've got a lot of universities and organization names that you're being introduced to right now, so I want to just make sure that's clear. We're also joined by Cynthia Weber and Cache Rain Jones, who will be talking a little bit about their experiences in a moment. That's actually Cynthia right there with her cohort of Capital Fellows. Earlier, that was actually last year. So like Laura mentioned, the Capital Fellows, this is an umbrella for 4 individual program opportunities that span the entire state government of California. We have 2 programs in the legislature right here in the Capitol in Sacramento, the Assembly Fellowship Program and the Senate Fellowship Program. We have the Judicial Fellowship Program, which Cache is going to talk a little bit about in our judiciary, and then of course our Executive Fellowship Program in the executive branch. So what all 4 of these programs have in common is that this is truly an unparalleled opportunity to engage in public service and launch your career. Our fellows in all 4 of our programs are working at some of the highest levels of state government with senior level executive staff, actual legislators, and court administrators, with quite a broad range of responsibility and challenges that are given to you as a fellow during this process. All 4 of our programs also include an academic seminar component, and that's what makes it a fellowship, is that combination of academia and applied working in your full-time role, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday as a fellow. So most of our fellows attend their academic seminar once a week. Besides our judicial fellows, which attend academic seminar once a month. We'll get into the nuances of each program in a little bit, so hold your questions if you have some related to the differences of the programs. So our Senate and Assembly programs, their academic seminar is in political science, and our executive and judicial programs study public policy and administration. And these are graduate level, master's level courses. And so fellows are applying what they're learning in their day-to-day work as a fellow to those academic disciplines and vice versa. Almost all of our fellows live and work full-time in person in Sacramento, which is of course right here where our beautiful capital is located, with the exception of a few of our judicial fellows who are placed statewide, which again is what we're going to talk about in a moment. All of our fellows receive a monthly stipend of $4,880 a month. In addition to that, they also receive health, vision, and dental benefits, student loan deferments, and a one-time moving allowance of $875. And with that academic seminar component that I just mentioned, upon completion of the fellowship, our fellows end with 6 graduate units from Sacramento State that are applicable to any master's program that will accept those units as part of their curriculum. And those are units that you are not paying tuition or fees for as a fellow during your fellowship program in that process. And what that looks like, an example of what that might look like for you if you go on to graduate school after the fellowship. Me, for example, I'm a part-time master's student at Sacramento State in the public policy program. I was not a fellow, but if I was, 6 units is a full semester for me as a part-time student. So this is a full semester of curriculum that you're getting, that you come in with ahead of the game if you are to move on to a master's program. So it's quite an incredible value. In order to apply to any of the 4 Capital Fellows programs, you must have a bachelor's degree by September 1st of the fellowship year, which in this case is 2026. So that means if you are graduating with your bachelor's degree, winter 2025 or spring 2026, you can apply right now, today, before our deadline of December 8th, 2025. If you graduated a couple years ago, last year, 5 years ago, we have no statute of limitations on how far out of undergrad you need to be. You can also apply. So if you graduated in 2023, you are also eligible to apply right now. If you are currently attending community college or you're at a junior level standing, if you will be graduating in spring 2027, you can apply a year from now. These applications are annual. We run these programs every year. You must also be at least 20 years old by September 1st of next year as well. And you must be authorized to work in the United States. And fellows come from all kinds of different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds across all 4 of our programs. And folks from, all different kinds of political affiliations are very much encouraged to apply. Our Assembly and Senate programs are bipartisan, so there's opportunities to work for either a Republican or a Democratic legislator. And then our executive and judicial programs are nonpartisan. And this is a timeline of a little bit of what I just discussed. We are getting close to our deadline, less than a month until applications are due, but still a decent amount of time to finish up your applications and make them strong. They are due at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on December 8th. That is a Monday. And we are also available to help you as well. JBAY is offering incredible support for applicants to our programs, which is amazing. And we're here too. So if you need help, you're welcome to reach out to us anytime. Our contact information will be in the chat. It's on our website. And just keep in mind, we can't offer that help at 11:57 p.m., the night of the deadline, but we can in the days and weeks leading up to it. So please take advantage of all the assistance and support offered by JBAY and us as well. That is our job, and we love connecting with prospective applicants. After the deadline of December 8th, applicants will be notified around late February, early March if they have moved on to the interview component of the application. So after that, after you interview with a panel, you'll be notified in late March if you've been accepted, and then the programs begin fall 2026. Our legislative programs, the Assembly and Senate fellowships, start in October, and our executive and judicial fellowships start in September of any given year. You are also welcome to apply to more than one program. Many people do that. We highly encourage you to do that. If you're just interested in the Senate Fellowship program, that's great. You can apply to one, or you can apply to as many that interest you. And in order to do that, in order to apply, here's your checklist of everything that you'll need to complete. You'll need to fill out our form that we have online. This QR code will take you to our application page, which is run through SurveyMonkey Apply. It's separate from our website. I'll show you what it looks like in a little bit at the end of our slides. Part of the application as well, personal statement, policy statement. These are short essays with individual prompts that you'll be able to see once you actually start an application and look at it and the prompts and everything. Submitting your resume, college transcripts. They can be unofficial transcripts for any and all institutions, universities that you've attended, and a list of 3 individuals who will write you letters of recommendation. And each program that you apply to requires its own separate application, because we run these programs, you know, as a team, as a unit, but they're all reviewed by individual selection committees. So you need to submit a unique application for each, but we highly encourage you to apply for multiple. This QR code will be at the end of my slides as well, so you'll be able to see it if you didn't get to scan it right now. Okay, now on to the stars of our event, our alumni of our programs. I'm going to pass it to Cachet, who is an alum of our Judicial Fellowship program, and she's going to share her story.
Yay, awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. Well, I am just excited to be here. That is me. Yes, I see the circle around my face. That was 2 years ago now. You guys have braces. So I had the distinct pleasure and honor to be a part of the Judicial Fellowship, the class of, I guess we'll say 2023 to 2024. But first, I want to validate myself in the space as a former foster youth, actually out of the state of Kansas. And I actually, I was in and out of kinship care for the first 6 years of my life, and then the next 6 years in foster care. And then I was adopted at the age of 13 and moved to the outskirts of Seattle. From Seattle, I was able to be a kid, and I was able to graduate the top of my class and get a full ride scholarship to UC Berkeley, where I had the best years of my life. And then life got the best of me. I became a mother my junior year. And then I was impacted once again by higher education policy impacts. I spent the next years of my life working and being a mother. And then AB 1313 passed in the California Assembly, and it allowed me to go back and pursue my education. And then if you guys don't know AB 1313, that was a higher education rule where schools are no longer to withhold transcripts. And that year, that 2023 year, when I finally finished my education, I committed myself to applying to every fellowship and internship that I possibly could, because a lot of these times you do need bachelor's degree. And I love what Shannon said, is that you can't have an unofficial, and just knowing that you guys, wherever stage you are in your life, your educational journey, you're on the right path to getting more opportunities for yourself. So my time at the Judicial Fellowship, I was stationed in at Los Angeles Superior County Courthouse. There's 10 fellows in the Judicial Fellowship program, which is a little bit different for the other programs. And the closest fellow to me was San Bernardino. And once a month, I would fly into Sacramento, and I would have what we call an academic seminar, which is studies out of Sac State. That studies, like what Shannon said, was related to public policy and government. During my time at Los Angeles Superior County Court, I worked in 2 different offices. This is administrative in nature. I am somebody who was interested in pre-law, but just so you know that this fellowship is really geared to understanding what it means to have access to justice. And so my work was really as like an analyst in the court. And so that's what my fellowship focused on. So I was first in the community relations office, where I got to take part in mock trials and teen court, also judicial lunch programs. And I got to interface with a lot of youth that were learning about what the court and judicial courts do. And so that was a really fun experience, where I got to build out an analytical report that shared more information about the teen court program and how effective it was in high schools and middle schools. And then my other second half of my fellowship, I was placed in, it's called the Judicial Support Room. So think of this as like the welcome office for judicial courts, for judicial officers. It's also a place where we have substitute judicial officers, which I didn't know that existed. So sometimes judicial officers get sick and we need to sub in new judicial officers. So this office handled a lot of the affairs for judicial officers. So that's onboarding, swearing them in. And my work that I committed to that office, because again, I'm trying to give back to the court. I provided a judicial manual, a binder that supports with onboarding for judicial officers. And so that was the impact that I gave to the court and the placement that I was in. But I will say on the other side, the biggest part was the impact that this fellowship really gave to me. Two unique opportunities that I gained from my time as a judicial fellow. One, I had this really cool car ride with the presiding judge and the CEO of the court, where we went to the Skid Row area, and they launched the community in the court. So this is a court that actually was put in the community so that people who had troubles making access to justice to gain access to the courtrooms, it gave them another opportunity just to go down to a local room that was built into a judicial like a courtroom. Another unique opportunity was something that I love to share, and I will obviously provide my information for anybody who wants to know more about this. But my mentor, I had told her I'm interested in attending an adoption day in LA, where our Chief Justice had came down in town. And Adoption Day, this really big fun day in the court where there's multiple adoptions that occur. And it was a unique opportunity for me to be on the other side of the courtroom. And I had sparked up a conversation with somebody that was sitting next to me that was also in attendance. A year later, I was invited to the Judicial Council, where I got to speak from a lived experience perspective about being a foster youth and being adopted and what that means. And then I now can say on my resume, or as a lived experience representative, that I was a part of making November Adoption Permanency Month in the state of California. And so that was a unique opportunity that stemmed from my time in Judicial Fellowship. So I'll leave it there, but there's tons of other things. But the key that I want to share with the Judicial Fellowship is the question that you're asking yourself is, what does access to justice look like? And how can I support that if you're interested in the judicial pathway? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cache. I always love hearing your story, and that lived experience is so key, like you mentioned so many times. And like Cache mentioned, she was placed in Los Angeles. So that is one of the most unique elements of the Judicial Fellowship program, is that most judicial fellows are placed statewide. Currently, we have fellows working in the LA court, San Bernardino, Riverside, San Francisco, all over the state, and you're working in court administration. So you're not in the business of adjudicating cases in a courtroom with a lawyer and judges. You are working, like how Cache mentioned, in administration, in the behind the scenes elements of all the programs and policies that go into ensuring equal access to justice for all Californians, which is the mission of the judiciary. And we also have a few fellows placed in the Office of Judicial Counsel, which is right here in Sacramento. And sometimes they're tasked with assignments like legislative analysis. So anytime the legislature introduces a bill that affects the courts, that affects the judicial branch, the Judicial Council and those fellows placed there will be analyzing that, advocating for that, talking to the legislature about how to improve or tweak the bill. But thank you, Cache, for talking about your experience. If you have questions for Cache or any of us, please use the Q&A feature to ask us those questions. And I also put our Instagram accounts in the chat. They'll also be here on these slides. With that, we are going to move to the Senate Fellowship Program. And so I'm going to pass the mic to Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. It was so great to hear your experience with the Judicial Fellowship, Cache. The Senate Fellowship and the Assembly Fellowship are a little bit different in structure. So I'll get into that, but I'll give a quick introduction. So I grew up in the South Bay area, and then I went to UC Davis, so kind of local. And then I ended up moving here to Sacramento for the fellowship program. So the Senate Fellowship is structured a little bit differently. We have 18 people, and I think the Assembly now has 23. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we all live in Sacramento, and we are all placed in different members' offices. So we work for an elected senator for the Senate Fellowship Program, or an elected assembly member for the Assembly Fellowship Program. And our job here is to run policy for our members. So I don't know how many of you have watched Schoolhouse Rock, but I watched that when I was in school at some point. So it's about turning a bill into a law. So that's our job. And I think that that's kind of the simplest way to break it down. But of course, it's definitely more complicated in practice. But the program does a really good job of walking us through the process. We have, of course, the academic seminar, which allows us to delve deeper into certain policy areas that we're interested in. And then there's also the mentorship, which I think Cache and Shannon touched on a little bit, but it's really an incredible opportunity to connect with people that are similarly minded in terms of wanting to make a difference in California, and just having access to this huge network of alumni from the fellowship program, but also the people that you'll work with. It's really, I just feel like I've been so inspired by everyone that I've met here. So I'll share kind of one of the bills that I worked on, and then I'll go into why I picked this bill to share with you all. But I worked on a bill, it's SB 50, and it basically mandates technology companies to sever access to a connected device. So think like Alexa, or like a smart thermometer, or like any sort of smart devices. So they have to sever access between an abuser and a victim of domestic violence. And the reason and that bill ended up getting passed and signed by the governor. The reason I wanted to share that bill with you all is because actually one of my colleagues came up with the idea herself. This is her brain baby. She had read an article in the New York Times about women being abused by these home devices when their abuser still has access to their Alexa and kind of, or the lights. And so they're able to turn on and off the lights without actually being in the house. And so she saw that article, talked to a lot of domestic violence groups, and was able to run this bill, and then it ultimately got signed. And I think that that is just so powerful, the fact that we are able to be placed in these offices that allow us to really make the changes that we want to see. And like we talked about in the beginning of the seminar, that's why your voices are so important, because you have the lived experience that will then allow you to make policy choices and decisions that will affect millions of Californians. And I think that that's another thing that makes this program so unique. It's that you are placed in these positions where you have a voice, and where your voice is listened to, and where you're able to make a direct impact on people's lives. So if that is something that sounds interesting to you or appealing to you, I highly recommend applying, because we need people like you in these positions of power.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. You just really like hit the nail on the head there. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I wanted to also tell folks, if you hear us saying things, legislative or government jargon that you've never heard of in your life, and asking yourself, what does it mean to work on a bill, or what is the name of that committee? I've never heard of that. Do not let that deter you from pursuing this opportunity. Those words, those phrases, that terminology, that is all part of the process. That is why we have an intensive orientation for all of our fellows. What we want to know about you right now in your application is your story, your passion for public service and public policy. So if you hear something you've never heard before, that's normal. You're not supposed to come into these programs, already knowing everything. That's what the fellowship is for, to show you the ropes and take you behind the scenes of how government works. So thank you, Cynthia, for sharing your experience. I'm going to move now to talk about the Assembly Fellowship Program, which is very similar to the Senate Fellowship Program. While I was not a fellow myself, I was a legislative aide in the State Assembly for a couple years, and the role of a legislative aide is similar to that of a Senate Fellow or an Assembly Fellow. And so as a fellow, like Cynthia mentioned, you will very likely be tasked with staffing a bill or probably multiple bills. And what that means is that you are shepherding this bill throughout the legislative process, throughout that Schoolhouse Rock video that I believe Sarah put a link in the chat. And so this is a bill, a piece of legislation that the legislator that you're working for, the office that you're placed in, either the state senator or the state assembly member, that they've introduced, and it can be on a whole variety of issues. That tech related to, impacts in domestic violence, like Cynthia mentioned, it could be something like that. And so as the bill's staffer, you are making sure that that bill is meeting all the committee deadlines and that you're addressing any questions or concerns from stakeholders like different legislators, different staff members, constituents from your assembly member's district, and doing all you can to get that bill to the finish line, which is getting signed into law by the governor. So taking a step back, the Assembly Fellowship Program is actually the first and oldest of all 4 of our fellowship programs, established in 1957. And so what makes the Senate and Assembly programs a little bit different from one another is the difference in size of each of the legislative houses. So if you're at all familiar with the California Legislature, then you might know that the Assembly consists of 80 assembly members and the Senate consists of 40 state senators. So that can sometimes contribute to a little bit different, working environments and vibes in each house and each fellowship. Some different rules here and there as well. But of course, at some point, any legislation introduced in one house is probably going to end up in the other house. And so the Senate and Assembly collaborate and work together a ton on a regular basis throughout the legislative process. So in addition to staffing legislation, fellows in the legislature also write speeches, talking points, prepare their member or state senator for meetings or events, and sometimes go to those events with them. While most of their work is done in an office building that's actually right across the street, you will have the opportunity to actually work and attend meetings or events or committee hearings in the actual historic Capitol building under the rotunda right here, which is pretty exciting. It never got old for me when I worked there for a few years. And as a fellow in the legislature, you're regularly meeting with stakeholders, constituents, lobbyists from all walks of life throughout California and listening to them and what's important, what issues are important to them, and then communicating that to the state senator or the state assembly member that you are placed with as a fellow. All right, with that, we are now going to move on to talking about our Executive Fellowship Program, and we have the director of the Executive Fellowship Program on. Laura, would you like to talk about the exec program?
Yeah, of course. So the Executive Fellowship Program is similar to the other programs, except that fellows are placed within one of California's executive branch offices. So this might be the office of the governor or the attorney general or an agency level office like the California Environmental Protection Agency, or even something that might be like a department level office like the Department of Healthcare Services. Or a commission, like the Fair Political Practices Commission. So the executive branch is broad and wide, and our placements are all over the map, although they're geographically located in Sacramento. So like the Senate and Assembly program, our fellows come and live and work in Sacramento and just work within these instead of, the Capitol building, we work in very different offices. Executive fellows function as full-time professional staff, and they work under the guidance of 1 to 3 mentors. There's often a mentor team assigned to a fellow, and fellows use kind of a variety of skills and work in a lot of different contexts. So we have fellows that might work in a communications office, writing press releases and facilitating press conferences and creating social media content. And there will also be fellows in a program-specific office that are conducting, policy analysis or designing or implementing programs that are providing social services to the public, for example. There's also fellows in legislative units that live within agencies and departments. So they're often kind of doing project management, analyzing bills that are, they're maybe working with the legislature on and, working to analyze the budget, put together proposals. So very, very broad in the executive branch. Our fellows, similar to all of the other programs, participate in the graduate seminar in public policy and administration. We also go on a lot of site visits and field trips to kind of see the work in action. So we're not just sitting in office buildings, but we might go and tour, a Caltrans facility and see the trucks that are being built from the ground up to go up and do snow removal in the mountains, and how unique and special that is in California. Of the fellowship programs, the executive program is very diverse in terms of the issues that fellows might work on within their placement.
Thank you so much, Laura. And here is our application link once again. And then this link will take you to our main website for the Center for California Studies and the Capital Fellows. You can also find the application link on that website, but I break them up into 2 QR codes here because they are very separate. The application is on SurveyMonkey Apply, and all of our digital brochures and a lot of the information we discussed today is on our website. I have a couple things I want to mention, and then I have a follow-up question for Cynthia and Cachet. So the opportunities for you in your career after the fellowship is over, because this is a 10 to 11 month experience, this is temporary, but the opportunities for really amazing, career advancing jobs are quite rich. So a lot of our fellows end up being hired full-time within the branch that they've been placed in, and they continue working in a similar role. Sometimes they're offered jobs in a different branch of the state government. Sometimes they go on to work at a nonprofit or even the private sector. But wherever your career takes you, this is an opportunity that is going to give you a really versatile toolkit to really empower you in whatever job that you might do after the fellowship. We have several actually former executive fellows working in the governor's office right now in his communications department, which is pretty cool and exciting. But I mentioned that to let you know that the sky's the limit. This opportunity can take you many places. And then also the mentorship component that we've mentioned a couple times throughout this program. That is a huge key pillar of all 4 of these programs. Every single one of our fellow is placed with a dedicated mentor who is serving as their supervisor or their boss during their fellowship that you're working with every day in your office. This is someone, this placement office, this mentor, they have applied to us to host a fellow. So they want a fellow, they're prepared for you to mentor you, and they have your best interest and your well-being at heart to make sure that you're getting the absolute most out of this experience. And then our program directors also serve in a mentorship role as well. We have Laura, of course, the director of the Executive Fellowship Program, and our 3 other programs also have individual directors. This is another person you can go to for help along the way during this program. If you encounter a challenge or an assignment or a bill that you're really not sure what the next step is or something like that, your program director is another person you can turn to and ask them, hey, what should I expect in this scenario? Is this normal? So the support that's waiting for you here is really extensive, and that includes our alumni network as well, our Capital Fellows Alumni Association. They put on amazing network and community development events for new fellows every year. As you can see, we have 2 former fellows here who have volunteered their afternoons to be here and help you out and share their stories. So this is the community that is waiting for you if you apply for this program and get in. There's just a great network of people here ready to support you. Of course, JBAY as well. We're really here to set you up for success. And then I wanted to also talk about placement. So the placement process varies across the programs. So in the Senate and Assembly Fellowship programs, when you apply for the programs, if you get in, You get into that program. Let's use the Senate Fellowship as an example. You start the program in October and you do orientation for about a month and a half, 2 months. After orientation, you go on to interview with a handful of state Senate offices. And from there, you're placed. And that is the same exact process in the assembly as well. Cynthia, would you like to share a little bit about how many offices you interviewed with and how your placement process went?
Yes, so there are 40 Senate offices, and I don't remember the exact number that I interviewed with, but I want to say it was around 20 or so. And this can sound like a lot, but I actually think that it's one of the coolest and most unique parts of this program because these offices want to have you, and so you actually get a bit of choice and kind of leeway in getting to work with an office that supports you and is a good fit for you to support whatever your future career goals are. And so when I interviewed with all of the offices, we have kind of a matching process. So I ranked all of the offices based on what I thought would be a good fit for me, and then they rank us. And then the program directors match us. And so they're really able to kind of give you a very tailored experience in terms of matching your personality, what kinds of issue areas you're passionate about, how you learn best, mentorship style. So it's a very customizable process. And I think for a lot of us who maybe this is our first job or maybe you're transitioning into a new career, it's really difficult to get this kind of very personal experience. So I think it's one of the coolest parts of the program.
Thank you, Cynthia. And that applies to the Assembly Fellowship Program as well. Cache, would you like to tell us a little bit how the judicial placement works and what your experience was like?
Yes, the Judicial Fellowship is a little bit different. I will say there is definitely information out there that you can kind of look into some of the prior placements, and I would definitely advise that. So what you do with the Judicial Fellowship is that part of the interview process, you get to rank the placements that you're interested in. And so for the Judicial Fellowship, it is one of the smaller cohorts, so it's 10 fellows and 10 placements. And they're very unique. So the Los Angeles, so I think it's more about also self-identifying. So Los Angeles focused more on public relations, kind of like community facing, versus a judicial council placement that was in the Criminal Justice Center that was more going to be focused on criminal justice. And then you had we had another judicial council placement that worked a lot with the legislative and the assembly realm of things. And so you do need to do kind of a little bit of search and like research on your own to see like what placement you're mostly interested in. And then you will rank those. And then in the interview process, you'll have an opportunity to kind of share why this placement you are interested in. And then the interview process will determine, again, similar to what Cynthia shared, is that it is they really do look at your strengths and what you're bringing to the table, which, lived experience, like, represent that. Don't shy away from that. And any type of applications that you guys are applying to, lead first with that, because it is professional. There is a lot of weight and value in sharing your lived experience. And for me, it was like, hey, I'm a community-minded person. I work somewhere between policy and nonprofit spaces. And so community outreach was something that I was interested in. And so that's why LA was my #1 choice. So that's on the Judicial Fellowship side. And I think Shannon might be similar for one of the other programs as well.
Yes, you are correct. It's a very similar process in the Executive Fellowship placement. Laura, would you like to touch on that a bit?
Yeah, it's basically what Cache described. That during if you're invited to an interview, you'd receive kind of the list of placements available, have an opportunity to submit your preferences and talk about them during your interview, and potentially do the only changes you might potentially do kind of a second interview with one of those placement offices. And then when you're invited to join the fellowship, you're invited to join for a specific placement office.
Thanks, Laura. I have a few more things to mention, but I just want to pause. I've been talking quite a lot. Zach and Sarah, where are we at in our timeline? Should we refocus anything, or?
I think, Shannon, I think we're doing great. I think if we kind of work on wrapping it up and transitioning back over to us just briefly for the last 5 minutes, I think we're good.
Okay, so a couple more minutes to
Yeah,
talk about questions,
absolutely.
and I'll pass it back over to you. Okay,
Yep.
fantastic. Laura or Leonore, was there anything pressing in the Q&A or the chat that you think we should to talk more about?
I did notice that there was a little bit of, or there's some questions about whether this is open to people from all campuses. We are located at Sac State, but anybody from any campus can apply. You can apply. You don't even have to live in California. You can apply from, if you live in Illinois, like I think someone was talking about living in, oh no, I'm sorry, Detroit, I think. Anywhere, as long as you're going to have that bachelor's by the time you start. And no age limit.
No
Can I-
major requirement either. Oh, Sarah, yes.
I want to jump in too because I feel like maybe there's a little bit of confusion. So the John Burton Fellowship and this partnership that JBAY has now with the Capital Fellows Program and the Center for California Studies is different than JBAY's Youth Advocate Program. And so one way to think about this, if you have questions, is that for the Youth Advocate Program, it's any young person who's experienced foster care or homelessness after the age of 13. To be a youth advocate, you have to be between 18 and 26. You do not have to have a degree. And frankly, it's less intensive than being a fellow, which in a lot of ways, we're saying this delicately today, being a fellow is essentially a full-time job. You're working 40 hours a week. To be a JBAY youth advocate, it's not as time intensive. So it's really tailored to young people with lived experience who might still be in college or are working. We are opening applications for that. I don't want to cause more confusion. So if you have questions or maybe you're not quite meeting the criteria for the fellows program, not just yet, but you want to get involved somehow, please reach out to the JBAY team and we'll point you in the right direction for the youth advocate program. So sorry about that confusion. And I just wanted to clear some of those pieces up.
Oh no, that's a fantastic program. I'm glad. Thanks for clarifying that, Sarah. I hope that folks on here will apply to that if they're not at the age or degree level of Capital Fellows yet. And then a couple years after you do that, you can apply for the fellowship program. I wanted to make sure that folks have complete clarity on the letter of recommendation requirement, especially if you're considering applying to multiple programs. So we require that you provide the name and contact information for 3 individuals who will write you letters of recommendation. And once you start your application, you'll see what this will entail. So you'll be able to put in their contact information and click a button that says send request. And that recommender will get all of the information and the login info that they need to submit their letter that will end up in your application for us to see when we review your application. And you can have the same recommenders for across multiple program applications, or you can have different ones. It's totally up to you. The best recommenders are the people that know you the best. We strongly suggest that at least one of them is a former or current professor, but overall it's up to you. You know the people that know your strengths the best. And your recommenders can also use the same letter document across multiple programs. And that's when that, umbrella Capital Fellows term, comes in handy. So if you have Professor Laura Baker is going to write my letter of recommendation for the Executive Fellowship Program. She can submit that letter to the executive program, and she can submit it to my Senate Fellowship Program application because I'm applying for that one too. I will have to request her as a recommender in both of those applications, but she can use the same document as a recommender. So if you have any questions about that, you're welcome to reach out to us anytime. Your recommenders also have an additional week to submit their letters. So you have to click submit no matter what on your applications prior to 11:59 p.m. on December 8th, which is a Monday. So whether you do it right then or a few days before, your recommenders will get notified to submit their letters, and they will have an additional week. So they will actually have until December 15th at 11:59 p.m., which is the following Monday, to submit their letters. And so keep that in mind. Your recommenders have an extra week to submit their letters, but you have to submit your application by that December 8th deadline. Okay, before we pass it back to JBAY, do any of our Center for California Studies or alumni have any final things they want to mention or anything? No. Good.
Great. All right. So Shannon, if you wouldn't mind unsharing your screen, and I will share my screen again. And just to wrap up with everybody, not only do you have tremendous support when you're in the program, we know that. How can we get you there? So JBAY is going to step in and provide some application support. If you are foster youth who are applying to the Capital Fellows program, we will provide you with support between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. Pacific time. You have to schedule an appointment for that. There are half-hour appointments, but we are going to be providing support via Zoom between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. pending availability with schedules. And before December 8th, before your application is due, here's what we can help you with. Application portal navigation. I was in just the other day. It's very simple, right? But if you need a little bit of help navigating the portal, finding what essay question might pertain to you, there are couple of different ways that you can kind of navigate the portal. Happy to support you there. And if there are any questions that we can't answer for you, we know who to speak with because, hey, you just met the crew on the webinar today. So we will definitely triage any and all questions to the Sac State team. We'll also help you review your resume. And those of you who may be fresh out of college for the first time, maybe, or you haven't polished up your resume since the last time you might have had a job when you were in high school, it's time to dust that thing off a little bit, and we will help you with that as well. We have some folks who are experienced in career exploration and navigation and can help you with your resume. There's also a common statement of support that you'll need to complete as part of any of the applications to any of the programs. We can help you review and support those applications, not just at a kind of a grammar level, but also kind of just, are you telling the story you want to tell? Are you accurately answering the prompt? I mean, basic things to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, as well as the individual program statements. You're going to have to make a program or program policy statement for each of the programs when you apply, and we can step in and help you work on those as well. However, in those meetings, you've got to come with something, right? So if you hop onto a Zoom meeting and say, I haven't started my resume, I haven't started my application, I haven't started my cover letter, I haven't started my essays, we will back you up a little bit and give you some pointers. So you got to bring a little bit of yourself to those meetings and give us a little bit of something to work with. Because we are at the deadline, very close to it, right? We're less than a month. So time is of the essence. We want to make sure we have time to work with you. And then if you need to set a follow-up meeting, absolutely fine. There might be some take-home things for you to work on with your resume or with your statement of purpose. But we need to do that quickly, right? Because we're underneath a month until the deadline. Once you have successfully submitted your application, and it sounds like we're going to have dozens of folks who are in the room today who are planning on applying, which is fantastic, we will help you out with mock interviews. If you've never been interviewed for a position before, I know my very first job out of college, I worked fast food as a kid. They didn't interview you. You apply, and they basically asked you when you were available. I was never interviewed for my fast food jobs, but I was for my first teaching job, and I blew it. So don't let that be you. We will help you answer questions, talk about yourself, talk about your lived experiences. One thing I want to let everyone know about, though, is you're going to have to open up a little bit. And if you don't feel completely comfortable talking with strangers, that's what the mock interviews will be, though, and that might be some of the best preparation for you. So it's going to have to be a little bit of a commitment and maybe stepping outside your comfort zone a little bit, because you'll be mock interviewing with people who arguably you've never met before, and they'll be asking you questions about the program, and you're going to be expected to talk to those things. So come in with an open mindset and kind of a willingness to share a little bit about yourself and be open, because that's going to help you be the best candidate that you can be. And then down the road, possibly potential networking with some relevant stakeholders. We're happy to triage you with the Sac State crew. They'll happy to ask questions and answer questions that you might have about the program, any kind of clarifying details that you might have as someone who has applied and kind of wondering about next steps. Again, if we can't answer those questions for you, we will triage you to the folks who are in charge, who can give you all the answers that you need and all the clarifying details that you may have help with. So next steps, a couple people in the Zoom have already asked, when am I getting stuff? Well, ASAP is the answer. You'll be getting a lot of stuff ASAP. So after this webinar, JBAY will email you, every single person who's registered for this webinar. So check the email that you registered for this webinar with. That's how we're going to contact you. We're going to send you a link to the recording of this webinar. We're going to send you the slide deck. We're also going to send you the application link, the Center for California Studies website, a little bit more information about, best practices for applying to a fellowship like this and kind of preparing a resume and a statement of purpose. And then to be clear, to be eligible to receive the supplemental financial assistance from JBAY, you will need to indicate your status as a former foster youth either during the application or the interview process. And again, the John Burton Fellowship meant to support foster youth. And if you have any questions about that throughout the interview process or throughout the application process, we will connect you to the right people. The pre-application support will begin immediately. I will email you a link to how to book a meeting with somebody here at JBAY who can help you through the application process. It will conclude on December 8th. So on that day, that is when the support is over. So make sure, I know we have some holidays coming up, book your time if you feel like you need some support with your resume or with your statement of purpose or just understanding what it is you're supposed to be doing. And then post-application support will start the week of December 15th. There will be more limited availability around some of the holidays, but we're here and we're going to be helping you, be the best interviewee you can be and understand the most you possibly can about the program to be the best candidate possible. And if you want to put yourself out there a little bit, share a little bit about your lived experiences and about how you would be a fantastic candidate for this, you would be also a great candidate for our mock interview services and some of our preparation services to make sure you are rearing and ready to go. So with that, we are a smidge over time, but I want to thank all the panelists, everyone from Sac State, Sarah for catalyzing this entire John Burton Fellowship program. It's a fantastic opportunity for you youth. So it was so heartening to see so many engaged young people in the chat and the Q&A. I applaud you for taking time out of your day that you're not getting compensated for to learn about an opportunity to make yourself better and to make an impact in the lives of young people in California. So kudos to everyone who took their time out today for this webinar. It will not be the last time you hear from us. So have a great rest of the day, everybody. Take care, and you'll be hearing from us over email very shortly.
Thank you all.